Good morning and good afternoon to those connected from Europe, or evening if you are connected from Asia. So as Amy said, I'm Laurent van Lerberghe. Actually, I've been 25 years in healthcare in big pharma around the globe, and since January, I'm an investor in digital health. It's actually quite nice to see some ex-colleagues from Sanofi. I mean, Paul on the video. I can see Felix in the room. And then a few of you that I met in June, but I hope to meet all the others that I've not met yet. Today I'm going to give you a window on Europe and what's happening with digital health. And I say a window because you can either just watch, but I think there is a lot you can learn that can be useful here in the US, or you can decide to participate if you are at the level of maturity that actually you want to get to this region of 500 million people are actually patients. How did I get actually into healthcare? I'm not a physician. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a PhD. Actually, my parents have dedicated their whole life taking care of children. They did it in Belgium. They did that in Switzerland. They did that in Ecuador. Sometimes it was paid work, sometimes not. So as you can sense, helping people has been very foundational in my family. You know, for me, it was actually during my whole youth, you know, from the day of my birth to actually my university. So that's actually how I got into healthcare, basically helping people. I was actually very lucky that I got the opportunity to learn about healthcare and learn about how to actually help people going around the globe. You know, I was born in Belgium. I'm a Belgian citizen. I've worked in France. I've been in Denmark. I've been and worked in UK. So when you do that in Europe, you learn about the diversity and the complexity of the region. I'm sure you would agree. When you come there and you try to figure it out. I went to Chicago, and there, to be honest, being a European coming to the US, you are impressed, and I can't cease to be impressed about the innovation appetite. And somebody was telling me earlier today is once you're convinced about the innovation, the momentum it can give to actually make it a reality, of course, with a quite strong business mindedness. I went into Africa. I was in charge of HIV for Abbott. When you get to Africa, you realize that you really need new solutions to bring a big problem to the next stage. You know, Africa, can talk more about it at the break. 10 years ago, it was like really falling behind and not really knowing how to figure it out. And now it is really leading edge digital solution. There is a lot to learn from. And then Asia, where obviously everything is possible, or at least that's the sense I had with the amount of wealth that is being created there, and how much they move now to these probably leading region in the world where you can't realize, but there is a lot of dreams, a lot of big plans that suddenly can be possible there. So I learned about obviously all that, and put together this great toolbox that. Now, moving to mainstream digital health, I hope to, I would say, make happen to make innovation and care more accessible. My family is full of healthcare practitioners. My sister is a nurse. My sister-in-law is a pharmacist. My cousin is a dentist. My mother, was when she practiced, she was a psychologist, now retired. And my wife is an endocrinologist specialist, so obviously surrounded by all them, dedicating actually their time, as you know, to the patients in a well-oiled system, especially in Europe, well-oiled system that was created after the Second World War. Working pretty well, with a good funding from the government, giving access to people. And every time you had an issue, the solution was, let's put more people and let's put more money, And given the dedication of the people, you could always achieve, I would say, the objective. This world is actually falling apart. It's not working anymore. It's not working anymore because, country lack budget. It's not working anymore because you can't keep putting more people. You'll see in a minute, they are not there anymore. You don't have the resource of people to put in the system. So the question is, what is this new world we can create? And of course, I'm sure you know about the impact that Copernicus or Gutenberg had in the first Renaissance. The question is, can actually AI and data help us write the new Renaissance for Europe? If you are born, raised in America, and you have not been operating in Europe, you read the press, you read the article, you read about healthcare, and of course you may read about the current context, and you may say, wow, Europe equal challenge. You read these few statistics, of course I could put many, but these are very illustrative. The first one, everybody knows about a lot of people retiring. But when we give these statistics for the world, it's a bit abstract. Take Paris. Every one of you, I'm sure, are dreaming of Paris, dreaming to go to Paris. In Paris, 40% of the healthcare professionals are more than 65 years old. So whatever we do, they will retire. Probably sometime within the next 5 years. Second one, same thing. I just took the figures for France. When we talk about the Great Tsunami, which is the number of people retiring, which means obviously leaving the workforce, but also increasing the need for care, 10 million in France for a population of 64 million. Take the next one. When everybody think about and talk about digital health, we are all here, and you heard some presentation earlier today where digital health might be the solution. What you observe is that 40% of the adults, which actually includes healthcare professionals who will need to use digital tools, which include patients who will need to use digital tools, which include payers who will need to use digital tools, 40% in Europe lack digital skills. And then you look at the last one. Of course, you will need specialists, in information and communication technology. In Europe, only 5% of the labor force, are ICT specialists. You think challenge. You think, why is Laurent talking to us about the opportunity in Europe? Actually, you need to change lenses. You need to change lenses, and if you put the right lenses, you will see an opportunity. You think about AI in Europe, people were thinking about, AI is going to replace human. It's going to get us fired. People are going to lose their job. AI is not going to replace the people who are going to retire. It's actually going to augment the people who are going to stay so they can deliver good quality of care. That's what people start realizing, because they realize 40%, if I take the example of Paris, it's 15% for total France. They will go no matter what we do. Opportunity. The second one, the bottom, you need to skill the people, and you say 5%, they'll never make it. Actually, the number of ICT specialists in Europe increased by 60% in the last year. There is progressively a move towards this area, of course, with young people, but more and more education with people who are mature. If you take the 60% increase every year, in 5 years, you would get to 50%. And let's assume you don't make it every year. If we get to somewhere between 30 and 40%, you see opportunity. Last thing I would say It's obviously an opportunity for the population, but it means also a discipline for every one of us in Europe, probably also you in the US. I'm sure, like me, you have a daily gym routine. I'm sure you do from time to time longer sessions. You know, recently, since after the summer, I have now a tech routine, which is basically getting educated every day on a little bit more of the tech and what it means. And although I'll never be a PhD engineer, how much I have to use and understand these techniques so that I can, in my new activity as investor in digital health, help guide entrepreneurs, specialists, talk to doctors, help schools, and understand, obviously, where the specialty need to go. COVID was tough. I mean, it was tough probably everywhere. It was tough in the US, it was tough definitely in Europe. I mean, from an innovation standpoint, you could say it was particularly tough on Europe, you know, falling a bit behind in terms of innovation and finding the vaccines. Maybe less from a manufacturing standpoint, as it produced a big portion of the vaccine produced worldwide. Actually, in Europe, it was a massive accelerator. It was a massive accelerator because obviously the government, the population took the punch in the face with the innovation. But the government also made digital health a priority. You know, there has been, for the last 2 years, government in Europe mobilizing significant money for fund of fund to invest in, you know, digital health fund or digital health startup. In total, when you put the different money from the government, 6 billion have been mobilized just in the last 2 years, specifically creating fund of fund led by the government. You know, for EU, it's mostly led by the European Investment Fund. For Germany, it's led by the government, who added a little bit of portion managed just by the national government on top of what has been given to EIF. And then UK, who's now outside of the EU, they also allocated and created their own part so that they could actually stimulate digital health company. You can see also in Europe, when you look at the growth of classical therapies, 5% growth. When you look at digital health growth, basically the companies who are now, you know, generating sales, you observe actually a 300% of growth rate. And of course, you can argue on what's the base, what's the sample, and so on. But you clearly see that the push, the understanding of its importance, the diagnostic, the focus that this is actually the future of healthcare that will replace what you saw at the beginning, to create a new model is now a priority all across. It's a significant accelerator. I think it's going to create a new world, a new system. So what do we do? What do we do as investor in digital health with the different partners I'm working with? What do we do in Europe to actually ignite this new renaissance? That's the window for you. The first thing is, if you look at Europe, it's about 25 to 30% of digital health companies worldwide. Significant. Look at the map that you see here. Basically, in 5 regions, you have 3/4 to 80% of the company. UK, France, Germany. Then you take Benelux, which is mostly Benelux. And then you take the Nordics. The rest, for the moment, is split across, you know, Switzerland, south of Europe, and then Central and Eastern. Of course, these countries, having realized it's a priority, they are catching up and accelerating in their company creation. Second, if you ask me, Laurent, how these companies are spreading across healthcare, it's pretty much everywhere. The focus I have in digital health is really digital health with therapeutic content. So not so much software, not so much just the app, everything that doesn't lead to clinical decision or new therapies, that doesn't have a link to care, I'm not really focusing on. Not that it's not important, but it's less my area of value added. So it's really the focus on research, AI in drug discovery, decentralized trial. It's the focus on diagnostic, AI imaging, digital medtech, or it's the focus on patient care, which is hospital care, all the tools and devices that will augment and are already augmenting the work that healthcare professionals are doing in hospital. Or it's chronic care. Chronic care is basically you and I, or patients with a disease, managing our health or managing a disease on a day-to-day basis at home. So if you look at these three segments, the 25 to 30% of companies worldwide is basically spread across. You already have, in Europe, companies that are really spanning the whole healthcare continuum. The next element, if you ask me, Laurent, but is this all startup coming from research, in Europe? Europe has been always known as making discovery in great research lab, and then this goes to the US to create a business, and then maybe Asia is copying. It's not that anymore. You have actually about a third of the companies of this number in Europe that are at the stage of what I would call early growth. Already with a business model that has been tested and initially works. Of course, it's never final. Already with sales, growing fast, some still below, million or a couple of $1 million or euro, but quite a few with sales above this threshold. And if you ask me how far up does it go, obviously you have quite a number between these 2 and 10, and a significant sample that go up to 20, 30, 40, or 50 million. So there is a significant level of maturity. And here, first window for you, if you are here, I really recommend you to do a bit like what I'm doing here, which is get a view on what's happening there. There are some very interesting learnings to apply. If I continue there, scale up. When I talk to investors or startups from outside Europe, the question I get very often is, yeah, but Laurent, how do you scale up in Europe? You are Belgian, so okay, you have a business in Belgium, and then you have to go to the Netherlands. It's different, it's regulatory, it's government, it's regulation, and then you have to go to France. And this is the world when, obviously, people were starting with biotech. It was challenging. And many were going directly to the US, actually, to do this big scale-up. And then people were starting with digital health. And yes, 5 years ago, it was, how do we get reimbursement? There was no reimbursement. Now it's different. You get actually in Germany the DIGA system that I'm sure you heard about, which is a very interesting system. You need to get your digital solution to get a CE mark, to just prove that obviously from a quality and patient care, it makes sense and it meets a certain number of quality criteria. But then you get reimbursement for 1 year. And during this 1 year, you can use it with patients and you can demonstrate the effectiveness of your solution and then ask for more permanent reimbursement. And what has happened is that governments are learning from Germany and putting in place, like France, a similar system which is called PECAN. I won't get into the technicality, quite similar. You see Belgium, similar system called mHealth, and you start this, seeing this all across. Scale up is possible. The second one, lever for scale up, is now you get big pharma and big medtech investing significantly into the area. That's the other way to scale up relatively quickly. If you come back to the segment I was mentioning, research, patient care, and diagnostic, the whole segment of research, that's a segment where the root is less about market access and reimbursement. It's more about working with big pharma and medtech, to scale up. You start seeing pharma companies that partner with this startup, that work together with them, and actually contribute or help them directly to scale between one country to the other. Between Belgium, working with a company who has been setting up a system in Belgium. Now they move with the pharma client to do that in France, to do that in Germany, and to do that in the Netherlands. You start seeing that happening. It's taking scale. It's really real. The scale-up is definitely possible, and keep in mind the 500 million patients that you have in Europe. Next one that I want to flag for you is what I call the Euro data sphere. This is a bit of a new concept. Of course, patient data has always been there. Somebody earlier was telling me, Laurent, obviously the whole core of digital health is data. And it's data, and of course it's access to the data. It's not just the number of patients, but it's also the richness of data that you have on each patient. And it's the consolidation you can give to this data. Systems in Europe have been known for gathering quite a number of data on the patients. If I take the example of France, the social security, the national social security, has all the information on every one of us that is linked to reimbursement. It's not split between this payer, that payer, that payer, and this one, and that region, and this one, and this one. It's the whole country. And they have this historical data for many, many years. It's just an example. The key challenge a few years ago was, but how do we access the data? How do we get the right, ethical, board that can approve when you want to do a study and so on and so forth? And what you start seeing in countries is obviously the push to make this data accessible when it is for research. You have the push at European level to create a Euro health data hub that, again, is accessible for research. There's been a big change in the last few years. Of course, I won't be naive and tell you that all the barriers have been eliminated, but it's a significant change, and in the next few years, obviously, will be a fuel to this quality of algorithm. Of course, to get this predictability for patients, as I was saying, you don't just need a quantity of data, but a quality of data. And you really see the change happening in Europe. One last topic I would mention is prevention. Not there yet. Is it a priority for health system and government? It is. You cannot have a conversation with a politician, a health authority in Europe without them saying prevention is our priority. For now, they haven't found the solution to pay for it. You ask the government, you ask the patient, you ask the individual, or ask yourself, who's ready to pay for prevention? Not found the solution. You have some interesting companies being created. They don't really expand. They don't really survive. I think that's probably an area. I wouldn't discard it. I would really monitor it closely. I think they're going to find a solution. Maybe it's going to be insurers. Maybe it's going to be more linked to a chronic disease monitoring. But for the moment, thinking about this window for you, it's more something to watch than something that is thriving and to invest in. Two last comments. Thinking about what we do to Ignite. As investor, there are two areas that are really important helping companies. One is the whole topic on how you manage data and the regulatory process. You know, you probably have seen there's been a lot of regulations being put on the table in the last 6 months or a couple of years on data, on AI space in Europe. It has good intention. You know, startups definitely need the support to navigate and do the right thing. There is a path, and as an investor, I'm better positioned, obviously, helping them with the path that I can repeat from one company to the other than getting them invented systematically. So that's clearly a topic. This goes with reimbursement, getting the DIGA, getting the PECAN. Once you have done this, you know, you can repeat it, same thing. And then the second topic is IP. Very virgin field. It's only starting. But as everybody comes from the pharma world, and you need some protection from what you have invented, this question of how you protect your value is a critical one. To be fully transparent, solution has not been found, but that's the second priority that we are focusing on helping startups. And then I want to mention, as a conclusion, what we do with HITLAB Breakthrough Alliance. You know, I've been actually working with HITLAB now for quite a few years, starting in the middle of COVID. And it was very clear that, you know, on top of, you know, pushing these in the US, you know, with the data, with the evidence, the idea of creating global champions needed to be, obviously, relying on pillars in US, in Europe, and probably other regions in the world. What I like in this vision is that it's not here I'm the advocate for Europe, and then Bill would be the advocate for US, and so on. Actually, what we believe is that, you know, to really make this global champion to emerge, because patient and patient data are regional, we need to have, I would say, presence and network, and then exchange across regions to accelerate and be real bodies that will, you know, be seen as key enablers and real enablers, and that over the next 2-3 years, we start having track records where we can actually list these companies that, because of these cross-regional and global presence, we have been able to make go faster to the global level and global champions. So Europe is a window for you. You know, watch and at least learn. My advice is also get involved, because it's the new renaissance. Thank you.